never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Just when you thought New York State couldn't reach its highest level of liberal insanity, Kathy Hochul goes out and does the unthinkable. Just when you thought New York State couldn't reach the highest level of liberal insanity, Kathy Hochul comes out swinging with her most draconian and totalitarian and authoritarian move yet. She decides to call in the National Guard. She decides to declare a state of emergency on our unvaccinated healthcare workers. Listen, yesterday I did an entire show. We spoke about the fact that last year they were heroes. They were America's most praised and most heroic frontline responders and healthcare workers here in the United States of America. And today they're so easily being tossed to the curb. It's sickening. It's disgusting. And in Rochester, New York, upstate, I attended a rally where I got to meet a lot of these healthcare workers. I actually got to talk to them. It was a beautiful day out yesterday. For those of you who went, you know all about it. There were 1,000+ strong here in upstate New York. Why there weren't tens of thousands supporting our frontline healthcare workers is absolutely beyond me. It's disgusting to think that not more people were out congratulating, applauding, and just saying thank you to all these healthcare workers for doing everything they did to keep us safe during last year's pandemic. Instead, a lot of people stayed home. They continue to shame them. And when you thought Kathy Hochul might decide to say, you know what? Okay, listen, I don't want to lose you guys. I know you're here defending yourself, your medical freedom, and reversing this mandate. She decides to double down by calling in the National Guard. Today, we start our show by looking at exactly what Kathy Hochul had to say this morning by declaring a state of an emergency and bringing in the National Guard to replace the unvaccinated healthcare workers. So here we have Hochul, her speech this morning. Let's take a listen.
I will be signing an executive order to give me the emergency powers necessary to address these shortages where they occur. That's going to allow me to deploy the National Guard, who are medically trained, deploy people who've been retired, who may have had a license lapse, bring in people from elsewhere. That is not my first position, though, my friends. My desire is to have the people who've been out there continue to work in their jobs.
So if she really wanted people to continue to work in her jobs, she wouldn't be firing 100,000 healthcare workers today. I mean, essentially, yesterday was Medical D-Day. We know that they were given an ultimatum, either get vaccinated or get lost. So a lot of them said, you know what, I'm going to exercise my right to freedom to choose what's best for my body. Remember, my body, my choice. And Kathy Hochul said, well, fine, then take a hike. You guys are, as she referred to them a few days ago, replaceable.
But today is a significant deadline. It reflects my priority to just stop this virus dead in its tracks. We are over it. We are done. We want to move on. And the only way we can do that is to ensure that everyone is vaccinated, but particularly individuals who are...
Which is a total and outright lie. See, this is what pisses me off about Kathy Hochul and pretty much all of the Democrats, including Joe Biden. They continue to lie to the American people. They continue to lie. That is the deal. They are lying to us. This whole idea that if everybody just would get vaccinated, we'd eradicate COVID tomorrow just simply isn't true. It's not true. If you listen to other doctors, like any of the thousands of doctors out there who are screaming from the rooftops that the vaccine is not the answer, not only is it not the answer, it's actually doing a lot more harm than good. I listened to Dr. Robert Malone on Sean Hannity's podcast the other day, and if you have a chance, I put a link to it in my personal profile, which I keep open to the public for you all to see. I linked to this interview, and Dr. Robert Malone was actually saying that the vaccine is causing the infection to be far worse amongst the vaccinated than the unvaccinated. See, this is not a pandemic of the unvaccinated. This is a pandemic of lies and deceits endorsed by the village idiot in the White House and co-sponsored by pretty much every Democrat that better sing to Joe Biden's tune or face serious consequences. Well, fortunately for a lot of the government officials running the show here, they don't take orders from Joe Biden. They take orders from us, the American people. We're the ones who elect them. Sadly, our healthcare workers are hired and we don't elect them. So, unfortunately, they are able to be fired, which 97,000 are, in fact, being let go today because yesterday was the deadline. Let's listen to more of Kathy Hochul's lies as she declares a state of an emergency and decides to bring in the National Guard to replace the unvaccinated healthcare workers today.
Care of the people who are sick. And I'm talking about the confidence that people need to have. Whether you're an expectant mom heading into the hospital, checking in, an anxious time in your life, you need to be assured that the person taking care of you is not going to give COVID to you or your newborn. Can't we just say that that is a basic right that everyone has to know that they'll be safe when they enter a healthcare facility, or you have your elderly parents or grandparents in a nursing home, that they will not get sick because of someone who's charged with their care?
See, again, it's just more lies. She's assuming that if you're vaccinated, you're not going to get sick. Where are the fact checkers throughout all of this? If you aren't aware, Harvard University, 95% vaccinated, just sent all the students home. They are going remote again. And they have a date of something like October 6th, they'll reevaluate. I mean, October 6th. I thought colleges weren't super spreaders. I thought the CDC ruled out that college football games weren't super spreaders. I mean, what did they think was going to freaking happen? They packed these stadiums 60,000, 70,000 strong. And they're trying to convince us that everything's going to be okay. No masks. Oh, but don't worry, everybody's vaccinated. So go ahead, pack the stadiums full of 60, 70,000. NFL games right here in Buffalo, New York. No problem. If you're vaccinated, it's carte blanche to do whatever you feel like it. There's no way you can get coronavirus. And Kathy Hochul here sitting right now this morning lying once again, saying we don't want you to have to go to the hospital and risk being exposed by an unvaccinated healthcare worker, because that's just the last thing we would ever want for you. Misleading the American people that there's no way you can get the virus without being vaccinated. I mean, they are so hypocritical and they contradict themselves every freaking step of the way. If you haven't realized this administration is lying to you over and over and over again, then you need to wake the hell up, people. I mean, because that's what they're doing. They are just straight up lying. Every day there's a new story. Yesterday it is get vaccinated so you don't get sick. Today is just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you're going to not get sick. Oh, but if you're vaccinated, then don't worry, you'll barely even notice it. Well, if you're going to barely even notice it if you're vaccinated, then what's the urgency to vaccinate all these healthcare workers? Why is Harvard sending all the kids home? It's just one hypocritical, contradictory line of bullshit that they continue to feed the American people. And you'd think the Republicans or the opposing party or pretty much anybody on planet Earth besides doctors who are screaming from the rooftop saying they're lying, this isn't right. You'd think politicians on the right would be coming out harder against them. You'd think they'd be coming out stronger. Well, we know in New York State that's not going to happen because a Republican may as well be a Democrat in New York State. The whole thing is just a big mind game that they lead you to believe they're actually playing for the other side, but we know they're not. Because at this rally that I went to yesterday in Rochester, New York, I didn't see a single Republican. I didn't see a single legislator there applauding what was going on. Not one. And that is very disturbing to me. There were a few that are running for legislation. There are a few that are trying to get on city council, and they are conservatives, patriots. But as far as the moderate Republicans are concerned, you're not going to see them anywhere near this stuff. Maybe in Florida, maybe in Texas, but in these Democrat-run states, they're nowhere to exist. And it's disgusting. And the fact that they keep getting voted over and over and over again leads me to believe that we don't stand a chance in hell in ever turning this BS around here in New York State. I mean, we know it's an absolute lost cause in far left radical progressive California. I mean, Newsom escaping the recall, not just narrowly, but 70% decided to keep Newsom. It just goes to show how mentally ill people are in these liberal states. And I am going to call it a mental illness. Anybody driving around with a mask right now in their car is mentally ill. Anybody forcing your kids to mask up when they don't absolutely have to. Okay, I get it. There's a lot of people that have to send their kids to school. They just have to. I know you can make an argument. No, you don't. You should always find a way. I get it. There are people out there, they have to send their kids to school. They need to get to work themselves. Otherwise, they risk losing the roof over their head, or they literally can't put food on the table, or they can't pay their bills. I totally understand. There's times where you just have to bite the bullet and deal with it. But any other time where you have the choice and you're masking your kids up, that's a mental illness. The fact that a masked nativity set is the #1 best-selling item on Amazon today, according to Fox News last night. I was listening to Laura Ingraham last night, and a masked nativity set is the #1 selling item on Amazon. That, to me, says America is sick. Why would you get a masked nativity set? First of all, people, it's Jesus we're talking about. It's God. It's religion. Okay? First of all, you're so crazy to think that you need masks on your nativity set. Okay? They're not going to catch coronavirus. And even if they were real little people, God would protect them from catching coronavirus. Okay, trust me. He's got it covered. Even Kathy Hochul is going a little bit shit crazy with the whole God thing and suggesting that God is the one who wants us all to get vaccinated. We'll play that clip in just a second. But you know, these healthcare workers here in New York State, as sad as we are for them, New York's actually doing these workers a favor. And a big one, possibly. Because I've seen the ads. I've seen the recruitment ads. I've talked to so many of them on the ground, including my own sister, who's being let go today. And it's just one recruitment job after the other out of state being thrown at them. They're just going to go to another state that is shorthanded and make double the money. I mean, these nurses are about to get $6,000 to $7,000 per week travel jobs out of state. So it's not all doom and gloom for them, which I think is amazing. And I think they deserve it. And I hope they go on and make more money and stick it to Hochul and every other Democrat here in New York State that wants to force medical tyranny on them. untold amounts of healthcare workers are now doing this. They're now traveling to other states. $6,000-$7,000 per week they're going to make. Just ask anyone you know that works in a hospital, and they'll tell you that this is absolutely what's going on. But what really scares me, so these nurses are going to be just fine. Okay, they'll be fine. Whether they stay in the medical field or not, they'll be fine. What scares me with Kathy Hochul's emergency kind of state of emergency executive order here is that we now get to bring in the National Guard from all over the country who don't know how things are done here in New York State. They're going to come in. I mean, the National Guard, you really want the military in your hospitals treating you? Not to say that they're not qualified, but it just seems a little bit aggressive to me. It just seems like, is this one step closer to a forced vaccination situation? Our military's already here on the ground. What's next? And seeing military servicemen and women in uniform around our hospitals with their needles in their hands just doesn't sit well with me. And it's not something that we need right now when we're trying to calm America down. We're trying to reassure Americans that we're going to get through this. We're going to move forward, vaccinated or not. Well, having the National Guard come into New York State now and start hijacking hospitals and running around with their big vaccination needles isn't really the calming and reassuring notion that I would have liked. So we have a real situation on our hands here, and it's not just the National Guard. It's also the fact that we now are expediting visas. We're expediting visas from overseas medical professionals. And I talked about this on my show yesterday. I said, guys, if Kathy Hochul, if she declares a state of emergency, not only does she get to call in the National Guard, but she now gets to call in retired healthcare workers, even with lapsed licenses. They're going to fast track and reinstate all those licenses. So now people who are out of practice by maybe 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, who knows, now gets to come in and start treating you. We're expediting visas from out of country healthcare workers who now get to come in. We don't know where these people are coming in from. We don't know where they've gotten their training. We have no idea whether they're from a country in Asia who may have allowed them to basically pay for their degree rather than actually earning it. We don't know if they're from a communist country or a socialist medical country where things are run very differently there, and they're just not used to giving the high quality level of care that we expect here in the United States and that we demand because of how much money we pay. The writing's on the wall. And any nurse that you speak to on the ground who was just let go will tell you we are moving towards socialist medicine. This is where we're headed. And New York has taken the lead on being the test pilot for this type of healthcare. I've said it a million times. All you need to do to know where we're headed here in the United States, or particularly New York State or California, is look at the United Kingdom. I lived there. I've seen it. Socialized medicine. And it makes sense now that they're going to be bringing in these foreign healthcare workers on expedited visas who are used to being paid 10, 15 times less than our healthcare workers here. Because in a socialized economy where you have socialized healthcare, socialized medicine, like the NHS over in the UK, because it's basically subsidized and paid for by the government. It's not really, it's paid for by our taxpayers' money, but because it's paid for by everybody else than a company, they get to now pay less money because essentially they aren't charging. It's the government now paying it. So when has the government ever paid a decent salary to pretty much anybody but themselves? The only ones who get paid a decent salary in government are congressmen and women who make to the tune of $175,000 or more. Or look at our superintendents, government, federal. $250,000 a year some of these superintendents are making across the United States. Definitely here in New York, even in my own hometown, my own school district, the superintendent's making about $250,000 a year, which I think is absolutely absurd. So other than government themselves, anybody they employed, they don't pay well. So you better believe they're not going to pay these healthcare workers that they're bringing in from overseas anywhere near what they were paying American healthcare workers. So we're going to start to see the average income come way down. And if they don't pay these people, well, what's going to happen to you nurses and you doctors? I'm telling you right now, you did this to yourself. Any of you who are vaccinated, which is totally fine. That's fine that you are, and nobody's judging you. But we are judging you for not standing up and standing side by side to your colleagues and your coworkers who fought for medical freedom. Because guess what's going to happen to your own salaries as we start to move towards socialized medicine? All of you who are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, you will never see that kind of money again. I promise you right now, you will not see it. You all think you're safe because you decided to bend over to medical tyranny. You're not. Because once we implement socialized medicine into the United States healthcare infrastructure, your own salaries are now going to get crippled. It will come down. You'll be lucky if you make anywhere north of $100,000 moving forward. Guys, call into the show, 585-643-7711. I am taking calls. I have the lines ready. Please call in. We'll get you on the show. I want to hear what you all have to say. If you're a nurse watching this show, I want to know your story. I want to hear everything that's been happening to you. I spoke to a lot of you yesterday. I've posted a ton of videos both on my fan page and my personal Facebook profile. So if you haven't seen those, go and check them out. That number again is 585-643. We'll try to pull it up here. Let's see if this is going to work. 585-643-7711. That number is right there at the bottom of the screen. Call into the show, 585-643-7711. I want to hear from any of you who want to call in. So if you're just joining us right now, Kathy Hochul has declared a state of an emergency. She is now bringing in the National Guard to replace unvaccinated health care workers. If this doesn't worry you, it should. It absolutely should worry you, because we have another very, very worrying situation that's going on right now. And that is that Hochul, just days ago, before she declared her state of emergency this morning, Kathy Hochul is now claiming that God wants us to be vaccinated. And she's asking her cult, really, I mean, because let's be honest, this is a cult it's a coronavirus cult. I mean, it really is. And what's laughable is the fact that these crazies here, okay, they claim that Trumpers were part of a cult for 4 years. Oh, you Trumpers, you're just part of a cult and you'll do anything your fearless leader says. Listen, all Donald Trump asked us to do was go out there and fight for our First Amendment right. Fight to defend the Constitution. That's all that Trump ever said. Okay? That to me is not a cult. And listen, if you think it is, you're just an anti-American, Nazi-supporting communist. If you don't want me or shame me for defending my constitutional rights, which, to be honest, is all these healthcare workers ever did. All that they didn't want to shame others for getting vaccinated. They just wanted to defend their constitutional rights, and they just wanted to be able to choose between medical tyranny and medical freedom. That's all they were doing, defending their constitutional rights. And if you went to the rally yesterday, you didn't see these nurses holding up signs warning you about the vaccine. That's not what you saw. There were people there, and they have every right to. They're exercising their freedom of speech. But every nurse that I spoke to said the same thing. It's all about freedom. It's all about freedom. And you'll hear in a lot of my videos that I took and I went live with, you'll hear in the back room, chants of freedom, freedom, freedom. That's all it has ever been about. And it's all it's been about to me. But Hochul has taken shit to a way new level. I mean, this chick is crazy. We knew that when Cuomo resigned, that what New York State was going to get better was not going to be, or what New York State was going to get in return was not going to be any better than Cuomo. Okay, we knew it was going to be worse, but my God, I didn't know it was going to be this worse. So from the book of Jab, New York governor claims COVID vaccines were divinely inspired. And I'm going to play a clip for you all right now. This is Kathy Hochul giving her sermon, asking her disciples to go out and preach the word of Jab. Let's take a listen.
I prayed a lot to God during this time. And you know what? God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine that is from God to us. And we must say, thank you, God. Thank you. And I wear my vaccinated necklace all the time to say, I'm vaccinated. All of you. Yes, I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones. But you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know this. You know who they are. I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, please get vaccinated because I love you. I want you to live. I want our kids to be safe when they're in schools. I want you to be safe when you go to a doctor's office or to a hospital and are treated by somebody. You don't want to get the virus from them. You're already sick or you wouldn't be there. We have to solve this, my friends. I need every one of you. I need you to let them know that this is how we can fight this pandemic, come back to normal, and then start talking about the real issues that we have to.
So this lady is batshit crazy, okay? I mean, it not only is it the most sacrilegious speech I've ever heard from a politician, it's completely hypocritical. Because, listen, Kathy Hochul, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, pretty much every Democrat that sings from the same hymn, they're all contradicting themselves. Because let's talk about abortion for a second. Where are these Democrats on abortion? God actually said through Moses in the 10 Commandments, like, this is true, okay? This is really what happened, not like Kathy Hochul's version of what I think God said or trying to trick us all here. Thou shalt not kill is one of the 10 Commandments. This is actually what God handed down to us through Moses. So if we're going to talk about God here, if we want to bring God into any conversation, if we really want to go down this route, then we need to bring God into the abortion issue, the pro-life issue. But Kathy Hochul isn't pro-life. Nancy Pelosi isn't pro-life. They're all happy to go and tell people to kill unborn babies. They're happy to support taxpayer-funded abortions. And now they want to play the God card. So they've been supporting abortions, supporting Planned Parenthood, which is taxpayer-funded, by the way. Archbishops have come out against Nancy Pelosi and said, listen, I am not happy to serve you communion anymore. This is a blatant disrespect and a slap in the face to Catholicism. So they've come out against Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, and they said, listen, if you're going to bring God into any of this, then it better be pro-choice. I mean, it better be pro-life. It better be to support people like Abbott in Texas, in Nome, in South Dakota. So they've disregarded everything God has had to say that's actually in the Bible. And now they have the audacity to come out and lie, straight up lie, and try and tell us that God wanted us to be vaccinated and to go amongst each other. And she's calling her cult disciples. I mean, this is satanic. I mean, it's not even debatable anymore that the Democrats have absolutely transformed into a satanic cult. And not all Democrats. Listen, I'm not calling you all satanic cult members, but anybody who agrees with Kathy Hochul in this absolute nonsense, you are in the cultist camp. There's no two ways about it. Because for Kathy Hochul to go out and tell all of you to listen to God, that God wanted us to be vaccinated, is just not only the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard in my life, but it's the most anti-religious and complete abuse of using God to try to con, because this is what it is, con her followers, her cultists, to go and now spread misinformation, because that's exactly what this is. It's misinformation now through religion. So this is probably the most insane thing I've ever spoke about during any of my shows. I mean, and trust me, just when you think we can't reach a new level of insanity, New York State challenges that. California challenges it. And lo and behold, they smash that target out of the park every single time. Let's listen to what the American people have to say. Guys, remember, if you want to call into the show, 585-643-7711. I'll go ahead and put that number up at the top of the screen. 585-643-7711. Call into the show. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I'm looking at some of your comments. Helen's right here. Helen right here on our feed. She has never opened a Bible. She didn't even take it. Disgusting. Absolutely, Helen. 100% agree. I bet half of these Democrats who try to preach the gospel have probably never even read a single page of the Bible. Nicole says she is distracting everyone because she is the first woman. And how can you preach God and not allow a religious exemption? That is a phenomenal point, Nicole. Thank you for commenting and thank you for watching the show. Thank you all, everybody, for supporting the show. I really appreciate you guys coming in from all over the country and all over the world. It's a great point. How can you preach God and not allow a religious exemption? And as soon as I knew these religious exemptions were going to be challenged, that's when I knew these Democrats here in New York State were full of shit. Okay? You can't preach God and then be pro-choice, which basically means you're allowing people to kill unborn babies, and then not allow religious exemptions, and then basically use God to then say, oh, but because I want you to get vaccinated, I'm now going to pull religion into this whole shit show. I mean, and if anybody doesn't see what's going on here, they're just as batshit crazy as Kathy Hochul right now. Because this is just a blatant disregard and completely abusive to Catholicism. And I don't know why I'm not hearing more bishops, more priests, more members of the Catholic Church outraged by this. So I'm looking at a few of your chats right now, guys. Thank you so much for commenting. Robin, you're exactly right. A self-inflicted state of emergency. Kathy Hochul has, she's brought this on herself. I can't feel bad for any of these people right now. You can't inflict pain and then go play doctor and then expect everybody to treat you like heroes. Shannon Joy said it the best yesterday. She said, these people act like firefighters where in fact they're the real arsonists. And that's what's going on here in New York State. They are arsonists. They're going out like the mafia did in the 50s and the 60s, breaking your legs, then providing you the cast and the crutch and saying, hey, see what happens when you let us take care of you? We'll make you better. Well, hold on a second. You broke my freaking legs in the first place. Now they don't want to show you that part. They don't want to actually show you the part where they set the world on fire. They only want to show you the part where they come running to the rescue. And of course, they have their little lapdogs, the mainstream media, both locally and on a national level, covering for them every single time. Kathy Hochul is nothing more than another socialist like de Blasio, Marxist here in New York State. We got rid of Cuomo, yes, but this is far from anything that I think any of us have ever wanted. Jerry says, I am a rational human, but I admit I simply cannot understand the GOP response to COVID. So we have a liberal comment here. GOP governors are basically against doing anything to slow down or stop the disease. That is not true. We are against tyranny, Jeremy. That is what we are against. We are against medical tyranny. So he asks why. Well, I just gave you my answer. They claim they are pro-life, but they simply don't care about the 1 in 500 Americans who have already died of COVID or the ones who will die in the future because of their actions. They are against any mask mandates. Yes, we are, because it goes against their constitutional rights. They are against vaccine mandates. Yes, we are. Again, it goes against their constitutional rights. They are against social distance, but they support taking horse medicine. Why? Why, Jeremy? Because we're allowed to decide what medical treatment we want for ourselves. And this is the most disgusting part about this whole thing, is that if we were just allowed to treat ourselves early on to eradicate coronavirus, we wouldn't have gotten to the point where we need this damn vaccine. We never would have. There's so many treatments out there right now available. Thousands of doctors are talking about these treatments, nurses. And I'm talking Dr. Robert Malone, if you missed the beginning of the show, look him up on Sean Hannity's podcast. There's a link to that podcast in my personal feed. Dr. Robert Malone, he's actually one of the creators of the RMNA or the mRNA technology. He helped create this technology that we're now using to vaccinate Americans. And he even said this is actually causing the infection to be worse. It's not a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's actually in any doctor that you go and talk to, besides Fauci, because he's bought and paid for, but thousands of doctors that you all listen to will tell you this is actually a pandemic of the vaccinated. It's not misinformation. YouTube, Facebook, they're not going to shut me down for this video. They may have 4 or 5 months ago, but they know just as well as every other healthcare professional here in America that's not bought and paid for that this is a pandemic of the vaccinated. Why? Because the mRNA technology is making the infection far worse. It's actually making people shed harder, and it's making these people much more contagious. So it's been a disaster from day one. A lot will say that we vaccinated too quickly. So there is a hidden agenda here. And it might not just be for the pharmaceutical companies. That may have been step one. Step one may have been line big pharma's pockets before we shut the whole thing down and move on to step two, which is socialized medicine here in New York State. Guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about the fact that Biden has now lied once again, and Biden wants to actually vaccinate 100% of Americans. He moved the goalpost once again. What happened, Joe? What happened if we could just vaccinate 70% of the population? We'll be good to go. We'll get on with our lives. Well, they've moved the goalposts once again. Joe Biden and the Democrats are on a mission to vaccinate 98% of Americans. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You Made It Political would not have been possible without this book right here, Expert Secrets by my man, Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson wrote this book to help people like you and I become leaders in our space, to gain an audience and a public following that respects, loves, and watches our shows on a daily basis. Expert Secrets will help you find your voice and give you the confidence to become a leader. It'll show you how to build a mass movement of people whose lives you can affect. And most importantly, it'll teach you how to become an expert authority in your field where people actually pay you for your advice. The best part about Expert Secrets is it's absolutely free. You just pay for shipping, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, or a live YouTube streamer. You want to grab a copy of this book. It'll teach you everything from building your audience to driving traffic to making this a full-time job so you can get paid for your passion.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in from all over the country. I really appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the comments. Thank you guys so much. Today, if you missed the beginning of the show, we're discussing the fact that Kathy Hochul has declared a state of an emergency. She's now calling in the National Guard. She's calling in retired healthcare workers whose license lapsed years ago. We're expediting visas now to bring in healthcare workers from overseas, and we're calling in the National Guard. It's out of control. It's self-inflicted, as somebody commented on my show just a few minutes ago, and Shannon Joy said it very, very brilliantly yesterday. They claim to be the firefighters, but in fact, they're really just the arsonists. So I don't feel bad for New York State right now. I don't feel bad for any of you who are stressing out, trying to wonder who's going to take care of you while you're on your deathbed. Because if you didn't stand up to this medical tyranny, if you didn't stand up to all of this BS for all these months that we've been warning you, well, you basically just asked for this. So again, America, be careful what you wish for, because you're all getting it at a level that you never thought would happen. So here we are now, Joe Biden changing the goalposts once again. And, you know, you remember when this whole thing started, Joe Biden said, we are, all we ask is that 70% of Americans get vaccinated. That's all we're asking you guys. Well, now Joe Biden claims he wants 98% vaccinated. What happened, Joe? What happened to the whole, if we just get 70% vaccinated, this whole thing's going to go away? What happened to all of that? So Biden comes up with new numbers of how many people need to get vaccinated before returning to normal. Remember, the normal was 70% last year when they were about to roll this whole thing out. Because the vaccine has failed, and I'm calling it that, a monumental failure, and I'm calling it a failure because kids are being sent home from college all over the United States right now, going back to remote learning. Harvard, of course, after they got all their tuition money, not even 2-3 weeks in, is now pulling the plug on in-person learning, despite the fact that 95% are vaccinated. Why are Americans not researching and basically taking the knowledge available, or taking the knowledge that's available to them and supporting more of what the right-wing conservative thinkers keep discussing? I mean, the data is available to all. The knowledge is there for all of us to go through and see. You can even pull it from the CDC website, and I can prove much of the left are wrong. for pretty much any conversation. So we know that 95 to 100% of the country could be vaccinated, and it's still not going to eradicate coronavirus. So what happens once Biden does maybe get his way? Well, we know the vaccine isn't going to work because it's not working now. It's not working at Harvard University, where 95% of the college students are vaccinated, and still they just got sent home. So what's it going to take for the American people to realize, you know what, maybe the vaccine is not the solution? Maybe we need to start looking at ivermectin. Maybe we need to start at least looking at vitamin D, zinc, and all of the other natural remedies that so many doctors have screamed about from the rooftops. When do we actually collectively, as the American people, say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be letting the government tell us how to medicate moving forward? Because we've tried it for 2 years now, and the government has been nothing but an absolute freaking disaster. From start to finish, it's been a disaster. Hochul's just declared a state of emergency, and a lot of New Yorkers are worried that we're about to go into another lockdown. Another lockdown means we don't get to work. We don't keep the economy going. People will lose jobs. They'll lose their homes. They won't be able to pay their bills anymore. But the writing's on the wall as we move towards socialized medicine, and as the Democrats continue to hijack America and move us more into a Marxist style culture. And Americans keep bending over for it. And not only are they bending over for it, but they're asking for more. It's like every single day they want more. The most disturbing thing that I've ever seen is Kathy Hochul coming out a few days ago and telling her cult members, I mean, I have to call them that now, because anybody who listens to Kathy Hochul talk about God wanting us to get vaccinated and that you are my apostles and you need to now go spread the word, that we're into cult territory. Okay? I don't know who's more insane at this point, Kathy Hochul or the people who actually listened and ate that up. So we are way beyond. I mean, we have surpassed crazy months ago. Hochul is now taken crazy and transitioned basically into insanity. But the American people are eating it up. At least Democrats are. Liberals here in New York State. I mean, they look at her and applaud her and praise her like they did Andrew Cuomo. And I'm kind of sitting here looking around thinking, is this really happening? I think the media is kind of getting tired of it also right now. I think the media is saying, you know what? We were happy to play for a little bit, but this is just getting freaking weird now. And they're slowly starting to change their tune. We saw it with the botched Afghanistan evacuation. And the fact that even the media gave Joe Biden a ton of shit for botching that entire thing up. So Joe Biden is now, he now wants 98% of all Americans to be vaccinated. I'll play you the clip of him getting his booster shot, which again, before I play this clip, can we talk about the fact that the FDA has not approved booster shots? Joe Biden and the Democrats are blindsiding the American people, moving at such a fast pace now that the FDA doesn't even have a minute to chime in and say, wait a second, we did not authorize this. We did not approve this, Joe. Why are we moving forward with booster shots when it's not FDA approved? Why anyone got vaccinated before it was FDA approved is freaking beyond me. I mean, I will never understand that. But we went with it. The FDA kind of went with it. But they're not going with these booster shots. They're saying it's just not necessary. It's not necessary amongst the general population. It may be necessary for those who are over 65 and those who are immune compromised, which, to be honest, are the only demographics, as far as I'm concerned, that should even get vaccinated. If you're in the elderly population or you're immune compromised, sure, it makes sense. Makes sense whether we agree with what's in it or whether it's safe or not. I think the risk of dying coronavirus at that age demographic is very high. So you do need to weigh the risks, and you need to think, you know what? I don't want to take the chance. I'd rather take a chance with the vaccine, because there's a very good chance that if I'm over 65 or if I'm immune compromised, that I might die. Totally understandable. My age, younger demographic, especially the children, should go nowhere near it, or should have to go or not need to go anywhere near it, as far as I'm concerned. So here we are, Joe Biden, once again, virtue signaling to the world that he got his booster, which is fine. That's fine that you get it. You want to promote it to the elderly demographic, Joe? Go ahead. But in this video, Joe now wants everybody, 97 to 98% of Americans, to get it. Let's take a listen.
How many Americans need to be vaccinated for us to go back to normal? Like, what is the percentage of total vaccinations that have to be deployed?
Well, I think we get the vast majority, like is going on in some industries and some schools, 97, 98%. I think we're awful close. But I'm not the scientist. I think, but one thing for sure,
So Joe basically says, listen, I think, it's right here. Reporter says, how many Americans need to be vaccinated for us to get back to normal? Biden says 97 to 98%. I think we'll get awful close. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near it, Joe. Listen, it's been a year now. We're only at 70%. We're not going to get anywhere near 100%. If any of you out there think that that's going to happen, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news for you right now. Not even close. And then he goes on to say, but I'm not the scientist. Yeah, no shit, Joe. So why are you talking like you are one? Why are you even giving advice? Why are we even talking about this? Why is anybody but a scientist talking about this? Government should not be recommending or suggesting any of this. It should have been the CDC or the WHO or whoever you want to listen to from a medical professional, and not just Fauci, but a whole host of people. And then the government should have said, hey, here are your options. Do what you guys think's best for you. Okay? But no. Joe's saying, well, I'd like to see 97 to 98% get vaccinated. I think we'll get close. But I'm not a scientist. What do I know? Yeah, Joe, you shouldn't have opened your mouth in the first place. He says a quarter of the country can't go unvaccinated and us not continue to have a problem. That is BS. That is another lie. And again, it's been one lie after the next with Joe Biden. It's just been lie after lie after lie. Because if you remember, the target was 70%. Okay? Joe said he wasn't going to mandate masks. He mandated masks. He said he wasn't going to mandate vaccines. He mandated vaccines. He said we only need 70% of America to get vaccinated before we can return to normal. Now he wants 98%. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen in a million years. And guess what, people? It doesn't need to happen. I don't need to be a doctor or a scientist to tell you that based on what I've read and researched and the data that I've observed, that we can have 100% vaccinated. Coronavirus isn't going away, just like the flu's not going away. So people, we need to start using our freaking heads and stop listening to the village idiot in Washington who gets it wrong pretty much every single time. Because like Joe Biden just said, I am not a scientist. So why do any of you continue to listen to any politician talk about a topic that they don't know? When I talk about it, it comes from a level of data. It comes from a level of research. Like I said, Harvard, 95% of the students are vaccinated. They all just got sent home. So, Joe, why would we listen to you talk about the fact that you want 100% of vaccinated to get back to normal? That is bullshit, and we know it's not going to happen. If anything, just take care of yourselves, guys. Drink water, get a lot of rest, vitamin D. Just stay healthy. That's the real cure. Thank you so much for joining me here today. You made it political every morning at 10 a.m. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.